Okay, John Shepherd, you have 12 minutes before the trap door opens.
I can do it, right? Rely on me with confidence. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here at this conference to celebrate the life and work of Eric Hobsbawm. As Chris said, I was one of his students. In fact, it was for 11 years, from 1969 to 1980. The world was a very different place then. History was an odyssey. You literally had to go to archives to consult them. There was no Google, there was no internet, there were no mobile phones. But it was a very good time. We had two Labour governments between 1974 and 1979, so 5 years, virtually as minority administrations. When Eric passed away in 2012, I was approached by Labour history in the University of Sydney, where I have connections, and I was asked if I could prepare a dictionary, which I was delighted to do. And they asked me, as I knew I was one of his students, I also give you some personal recollections, and that's what I want to share. What I'm putting in front of you this afternoon, excellent papers we've had today, nicely illustrated. It's just John Shepherd's personal recollections of life and times with Eric Hobsbawm. I'm going to try, as a school teacher, and then a university teacher, college education teacher before that, I'm going to try and answer the question, what was it about Eric Hobsbawm that made him such a good teacher, such an effective teacher? And in producing the article, Chris was also one of Eric's PhD students. He shared some history recollections with me, which I'm very grateful for. Well, Eric left a unique legacy. He was a world-renowned Marxist historian, intellectual, university teacher. For nearly 50 years, he was associated with Birkbeck College, University of London, now called Birkbeck, apparently, though in our generation, I think we always think of it as Birkbeck College. My records say he first got his first tailored history post in 1947. He was made reader in 1959, professor in 1970, emeritus professor in 1982, and then 2002 to 2012 he was president of Birkbeck. I think that was the honour which he cherished most of all. And Eric embraced the mission and the ethos and the philosophy of Birkbeck. Birkbeck, Jan and I were at an Arsenal match a week ago, and we were having a very nice meal at Ivy Corner in the Italian restaurant there, and a large double-decker red London bus drew up, and right across the panel it said, change your life, come to Birkbeck. And I thought, marvellous, the place is still going strong, it is indeed. Right, well, Birkbeck, of course, its origins go back to the early 19th century. George Birkbeck founded the Mechanics Institute, and it is that of study by night that is important. I hope this is going to work. John earlier said it would be nice to have some music with Eric. Well, I've got some images to share with you with Eric as well, so I hope that in fact that they fit with what I'm actually saying. Now, this is what is now the back door of Birkbeck College. That's the door I went through many, many times in 11 years as a part-time student, sometimes as a PhD student in the afternoon as well. And it says above the portals, Birkbeck College, and it says, in nocte concilium. Now, as a proud possessor of the Latin O-level, that means study by night. And it was study by night. Eric went there, as I said, in 1947, so Birkbeck didn't reach Mallet Street, various other places before that. And so, therefore, he was he'd been previously at Cambridge, of course, where he studied. His PhD was supervised by Michael Poston, the famous economic historian. And if you read Eric's autobiography, there are some very interesting views and verdicts on his observations on Cambridge, in agriculture and industry, with the students, and particularly some of the cloistered tutors that he came into contact with. So I think that's part of the explanation of my question at the beginning. What made Eric a good teacher was he had something previously before, so he had no professional training to actually compare it with. So, and it was, he says in his autobiography, Michael Poston's lectures at 9 o'clock in the morning that got the Cambridge students out of bed and packed the university lecture halls as such. Although they believed, apart from that, they could learn far more, according to Eric, by conversation with fellow students or by reading rather than, in fact, attending lectures. Now, I was brought up on people say you think I'm a Marxist. Well, I'm not a Marxist. My definition of myself, I'm still working on it, but it's radical Whig. Seriously, it's radical Whig, because I was brought up on Sir Robert Peel and the Cheap Trains Act of 1844. I was an expert on that. I was sort of drilled for O-level, A-level, and general degree level college of education. To have Eric Hobsbawm lecture you was a revelation. Don't ask me the questions afterwards about the Robert Peel Act of 1844, because I've forgotten it. Okay? I only ever had one insight into the sort of lecturing that Eric did. And that was, I was given a ticket in the late 1950s for one of the very first AJP Taylor straight-to-camera TV broadcasts, which took place then at the Hackney, what was then the Hackney Empire, Victorian Empire and such. And I went down thinking I was, at the age of 15, just over the sixth form. I thought I was an expert on Otto von Bismarck. And I was blown away by AJP Taylor and the way he lectured as well. And this is what I found with Eric. He rarely used notes or script. He occupied the Monday evening, 8 to 9 o'clock at night slot. He had a large audience because they put 2-year groups together, probably 100 students. I seriously never saw anybody leave an Eric Hobsbawm lecture early, or even on one occasion he went over at 9 o'clock. I think he's going to tell me that I haven't got much longer. And somebody got up and walked out. And we discovered later that this was a student who actually came from Brighton. And she really had to make that train because she got to Brighton, she still got half an hour to go to get home and so on. So, but seriously, what we were hearing was not Robert Peel and the Cheap Trains Act. What we were hearing, we already had the Age of Revolution, we were hearing the other building blocks which made up Eric's marvellous tautology, with the Age of Capital, the Age of Imperialism, and then followed later by the Age of Extremes. Eric gave another clue as well himself. He said, you work all day and then you wait. You have 2-hour lectures or 3-hour lectures. Can I keep you awake? That was the test. And he certainly did. We became aware, of course, that he was inspiring many other things as well. This is the days of the famous debate about the social results of the Industrial Revolution, the pessimist versus the optimist case, with Eric arguing against Max Hartman, chaired by Arthur Marwick as well. So that was the kind of lecturing that we got from Eric. It was inspired, it was encyclopedic knowledge, it was an analytical mind. I do not exaggerate, and it was something which, I'm going to add 2 other words. It was enjoyable and it was entertaining at that time of night. When I finished my degree, I can do it. I became one of his students for a PhD. Eric was a supervisor. I found him awesome. I want to run those years again, because all the things I could have discussed with him, I could have asked those first couple of years. He turned to me one day after a couple of years, part-time student course, and I just had, my 2 daughters had just been born, Louise and Emma, 73, 76. And he turned to me one day and he asked an interesting question. He looked me straight in the eye and he said, what's distinctive about what you are researching? And I thought about it and I said, well, this is the Lib Lab period before the foundation of the Labour Party, and I came up with the fact that working men, it was a gendered answer, working men were becoming factory inspectors and they were becoming magistrates or justices of the peace. Well, factory inspectors, yes, they needed the technical knowledge, obviously, for the legislation that was going through Parliament. But becoming JPs during the time of the Miners' Coal War of 1893 and so on, Eric's eyes lit up. He said to me, because he always knew the answer to a question, he asked me a question which he didn't know the answer to. He said, how do you become a JP? And I was able to tell him. Much later, became a JP myself. And I said, well, it goes with the Lord Chancellor's department, which is difficult to research, because in those days, Victorian clerks, once the parties changed, would destroy all the paperwork to protect the person that had been the Lord Chancellor. Anyway, he sent me away that summer to research that topic. I came back with James Bryce on the recruitment and appointment of working men as magistrates in Lancashire, 1892 to 1894. And I knew at that point, when my research had taken off, he had an amazing analytical mind. He did know everything. He had an unrelenting intellectual curiosity. Come there. And I learnt to learn from Eric Hobsbawm a magic phrase. He didn't tell me, I picked this up elsewhere. Don't get it right, get it written. And once you presented him with something, you can have a most stimulating 2 hours of it, and I'm very grateful to him. I'm almost finished. Eric knew you were a part-time student. He did his very best to make you part of a much wider intellectual community. So I went to his seminars. A paper on Bryce was presented at the Seminar Institute of Historical Research. First come, first seated. Otherwise, you're on the floor, you were sitting literally up in the windows. It was alternating, academic lecturers, PhD students, for example. One or two things to finish because I'm running out of time. One more minute, I'll make no more jokes about Arsenal Football Club. Okay, and that is that Eric admin is not really his thing. Okay, I was told when I came into higher education, you know, that research, teaching, and admin, you can only do 2 of those. You choose what you want to do. And admin was not his thing, but it was actually. He took over his administrative duty. There were certain college committees he didn't go to it, but he did take over. And he was refreshing. If they marked your exams, he would tell you afterwards what the grades were that you had got. No one else would do that. You weren't allowed to. It's amazing when you think of that as well. And so when I presented my PhD to him, he said, "Yep, you can submit that." And he looked at me, and I looked very doubtful. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, well, what do you think of the length? And it was, the length, the word count was 100,000 words at the University of London. And then he said, you know, I don't think they're going to count the number of words. and then I said to him, yeah, but, what's the but? I said, well, I consulted about 80 collections, and there was a collection in private hands I hadn't consulted. Well, he said, are you going to change anything you've written once you have consulted it? I said, oh no. And he said, well, you've got your answer. So, but then he also said to me, now we've got to appoint your examiners. Yeah. Peter Clark, who was then at University College, who wrote on Lancashire and New Liberals, and I was in his field, he should be the internal. And then he said, now for the external, well, Kenneth O'Morgan at Queen's at Oxford, both have been good friends to me in the last 30 years. He looked at me and he said, don't need to answer now. I'm seeing you in a week's time. You know, when you come in, you might have your own ideas. Well, I didn't have any ideas as such. I was very happy with Eric Constantine's choices for my externals as such. I came in a week later. Good news, he said. They both said they can do it, and the exam is next week or next month. Final thing from Eric is that it was when the final came. And I was told to report to the history secretary's office at 2 p.m. that Monday afternoon. I got there, the door was locked, there was nobody around. Eventually Eric came bounding down. I was very worried, I was a zombie, I was absolutely worried because the night before I'd been checking my thesis and the bibliography had got that the Liverpool Trades Council minutes were in the Kent Record Office because it's the days before laptops and word processing thing, the typewriter had slipped and so on, and a few lines had got left out and such. And he looked at me and he invited me into the office and I thought, what's he going to tell me? And he said, he said, relax. He said, relax. He said, they will give you a PhD. He said, they agreed in the first 5 minutes he was a PhD. You just found a rather good lunch. So I'm very grateful to Eric Hobsbawm and also for your patience as well. His legacy for me was, I spent a lot of time teaching mature students and working in a college education meetings myself before I became a polytechnic and then into university work. I found the inspiration and I learned an immense amount. Thank you.